Welcome back to the Arise interview. I'm Somna Sambo. My next guest today is Chief Mbazulike Amaechi, Nigeria's first ever Minister of Aviation. Popularly known as the Boy is Good, he was born in Ukpo in the present-day Nnewi South local government area of Anambra State in southeast Nigeria. Due to his burning desire to liberate the country from British colonial masters, Chief Amaechi joined the Zikist movement while still a secondary school student in Onitsha, and was always on the entourage of political campaigns. He took an oath with other members of the Zikist movement never to get married until they get what they were fighting for. He has continued that fight for a better Nigeria right from his pre-independence days to the birth of an independent Nigeria, where he later became a minister and respected elder statesman, all in a country that continues to witness several challenges of nationhood amidst its quest to be not just the most populous black nation on earth, but a country to be reckoned with globally. And I'm delighted to say that Chief Mbazulike Amaechi joins us now from his country home, Ukpo in Nnewi, Anambra State. So good to have you, Chief Amaechi, join us. And it's so good to see you looking all well. How are you doing?
Well, I thank God. I'm still moving on, trying to keep my head above water. I thank my God. God has been so kind to me.
A lot of young people would want to know the secret recipe that you have for maintaining this body frame and this very good and sharp memory, to the extent that even President Buhari had to commend your sharp memory when you had a meeting with him last year. So what's the recipe?
Well, I don't know what recipe God has. I attribute all to God's mercy and kindness to me, and that God would always want to retain some people to carry out some assignments and roles at certain times. I don't think I live any particular way of life that I can attribute to it. I just say I thank my God. God has been very kind to me.
God has been very kind to Nigeria, considering all the potentials that we had, which was sort of gingered you to participate in the pre-independence movements, the Zikist movement, and all of that. There were these huge potentials. A lot of people were looking up onto us as a nation. Do you think in one way or the other we've been able to fulfill either part of it or fully based on what your thoughts were ahead of independence?
Yeah. Well, I wasn't born in a very rich family or big family or family with any academic background, but I was born in a well-to-do, comfortable family. But as I grew up, maybe by accident or design, but my first feeling against the British or the imperial government in Nigeria then was in my primary school days when we were young children, about 7 to 10 years to 12 years. There used to be what they called Empire Day. That was the day they celebrated the British Empire youth. And so we used to be taken to Nnewi for field march. And then the march song for a particular year, composed by a local teacher, was Anyị Bundi, Anyị Bundi, Anyị Bundi Africa. Anyị Bundi Nenweru Ubulu nke Mmụta. He said, we are Africans who don't have brains for learning. So I say, since that time, the thing started ringing a bell in my ear right into my secondary school. So on one occasion, I went to draw water from a tap when I was in a secondary school, in my final year in the secondary school. I saw a long procession of people along the road at Onitsha, New Market Road. Dr. Azikiwe was there, Mrs. Ransom Kuti was there, M.A.O. Imodu was there, and others. So I just dropped my bucket at the tap and went to join them to find out what the crowd was all about. The crowd ended up at a Central Cinema, a place called Central Cinema. Then the people started talking to the crowd. I didn't understand half of what they were saying. Well, when the crowd clapped, I joined them in clapping. When they laughed, I joined them in laughing. And then at the end of the thing, one young man distributed some little booklet to people. I later on found out that it was he was called Iken Nanzimiro. He was a teacher in CKC at Onitsha. And then the leaflets were about the Ziki, an organization he called the Zikis movement. So I picked the document, I read it, I became interested in the youth organization, and then that young men should come together to fight for their country and so forth. So I kept attending meetings of the Zikis movement until I finished my secondary school. Got a job at Benin. We were working at Benin, then we set up a branch of the Zikis movement at Benin with one barrister Igbo as president and Chike Ekwuyasi as secretary. I was just a member. As secretary, I was elected as secretary. We were then working there until 1949. The Zikis movement thought that the NCNC parent body was rather slow and not moving strongly enough in the fight against British. So they thought we should do something revolutionary. We should urge the people of the country to move in a more revolutionary way. So we decided, first of all, at a start, that we shall deliver series of lectures preparing the minds of people. By then, Dr. Azikiwe had founded 2 newspapers in Lagos. One was the West African Pilot, then the other was a Comet. In October 1949, Ms. Aguna, a leading member of the Zikis movement, delivered a lecture at Tom Jones Memorial Hall in Lagos. And they titled the lecture "A Call for Revolution." Then we all I was in Benin. In Benin, we called our own lecture and then delivered our own lecture in Benin as directed, like in many other branches, in our own language and in our own titles. So later on, they said the Aguna's lecture was too revolutionary and it was against the British government. They arrested Aguna, arrested Malam Maraji Abdallah, who was the chairman of the lecture, arrested Tony Nahuru and others. And then at Benin, they arrested me, arrested Chike Ekwuyasi. They did not arrest our president, Igbo, who was a lawyer by then. So, but then the Zikis movement had taken a policy decision never to plead guilty in any court and never to recognize any court of British white magistrate or black magistrate. So I was sentenced to 6 months imprisonment at Benin. Aguna was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment in Lagos. So were the others. Bob Obuagu at Jos was in prison.
Imprisoned. Very
others, Kanu Oki was in.
So did all of this now eventually have an impact as to the sort of pressure that you had to put on the British authorities after your experience being in prison. And then there was this very strong fellow then known as Mbazulike Amaechi, who was known as the boycott king. Was it after this experience that we had that fellow actually calling for a boycott of everything that has to do with the British?
Ojike's policy of boycott all boycottables was not part of our resolution. He came back from America. Everybody came back and started his own way of pushing the struggle ahead. Dr. Mbazulike came back and started his own way. Nwafori came back and started to push his own way. And see, Herbert Macaulay, who was in Lagos, was pushing his own way. But none of them was a part of our own. I'm telling you how I came of myself. So let me not waste time. Eventually, I came out from the prison in Benin thanks to the intervention of the Oba of Benin, Akenzu, the second. So the struggle continued until the British agreed until the Richards Constitution that we protested against, in particular the NCNC protested against the Richards Constitution. And so when the pressure was too much now on the government, they decided to change the constitution. And then finally, series of meetings were held in Lancaster House in London, and then in the government house in Lagos for self-government. Eventually, 1957 to 59, meetings were held between the colonial government and the nationalists of all political parties. By then, the three major political parties had emerged in Nigeria, taking shape in Nigeria. The National Council of Nigeria and Cameroon, because Southern Cameroon was part of Nigeria then, led by Dr. Azikiwe. Northern People's Congress, led by Sadana of Sokoto, and Action Group, led by Obafemi Awolowo. Dr. Azikiwe's NCNC had a slogan and policy of one Nigeria. Then Awolowo's Action Group had a policy and slogan of East for Easterners, West for Westerners, North for Northerners, Nigeria for all. Then the Sadana of Sokoto's Northern People's Congress had a policy and slogan of One North. They were not interested in any other part of the country. They were only interested in northern Nigeria. So during the election to Parliament in December 1959, that ushered in independence, the MPC did not present any candidate anywhere in southern Nigeria. They said they were only interested in the north. Well, the Action Group presented candidates in the east and west and part of the north. The NCNC did the same thing.
Chief Amaechi, if I may cut you in here, that period was actually a very, very interesting period, because here we had the Northerners being interested in only the North because they wanted regionalism to take full occupation of the political space. But here we actually had the Southerners seeking for a federal state, is a unitary state. Would you say that with the current calls for regionalism now, that the Northerners were actually right to have been focusing more on regionalism, seeing that that will serve the interests of a future Nigeria better rather than a centralized Nigeria?
Well, my personal opinion and the opinion of people who worked with me in my party and in those days and most in South and Southern Nigeria was to belong to a big nation with big powers and big resources. We are not interested in fragmentation. And so it's for history to decide whether the attitude of the North at that time was right or wrong. Don't forget that they had threatened to break away from the country in 1963 when Enahoro moved the motion in the House in 1953 when Enahoro moved the motion in the House of Representatives for independence, calling for independence. But a wise council prevailed, and they came back. You see, but I still believe now, even now, in one big country, provided it's a big country of equal partners. It's a big country where no part or no section of the country is a slave to the other or has a second-class role to play. No. It's either that equal or don't let us pretend otherwise.
Talk about how this issue of a centralized Nigeria has caused lots of problems for the development of the country. A lot of persons have said that the Southeast contributed to the challenges that we have by fronting and organizing a federal system that doesn't work for all parts. Starting from when Agu Ironsi took over and he brought that decree, and a unitary state was formed. And it is confusing that the same Southeast that was interested in having a unitary federation is the one that fought to break away from the country. And when that didn't happen, it is calling for a huge autonomy. How do you think we can rebirth a nation that has a fusion of different aspects of the country to make it a truly giant of Africa like you want, but which several other Igbo leaders may not want to agree with you? Because they keep insisting that the nation of Biafra should come into existence.
All along, my political party and the people of the Southeast have believed in one big united nation. And we had believed in one, and that was why, as far back as 1956 to 57, a Northerner was elected the first mayor of Enugu, the capital of Eastern Region then, Malam Umaru Altine. He was a Zikist. He served a prison sentence with me at Enugu in 1952. We did not ask where he came from. He was just a nationalist. And we nominated him to contest the election as a mayor of Enugu. And he won election as mayor of Enugu for 2 terms. He was mayor for 2 terms. At Onitsha, Umaru Yushao, the Seriking Hausawa at Onitsha, was elected on his own merit, was elected a member of the Eastern House of Chiefs. At Port Harcourt, John Umoru was elected a member of the Eastern House of Assembly, and Dr. Azikiwe, the Premier, appointed him parliamentary secretary to the Premier. You see, so we did not believe. You see, the Igbos not only believe in one Nigeria, they live one Nigeria. There is no part of the country where you go and you don't find an Igbo man. If you go to any town in Nigeria, take away the indigenous owners of that town, the next population are the Igbos.
And so why are other
in
parts of
every
the
town
country?
in this country,
Why are other parts of the country afraid of an Igbo presidency in 2023?
Are they afraid? Are other parts of the country afraid of the Igbo presidency in 2020? What really happened is that events took place that drove some fear into some people. A military coup took place. It happened that an Igbo man was the first military head of state because he was the most senior military officer at the time. He was killed. It happened that more Igbo officers were convicted, were found guilty of taking part in the coup. And then it happened that there was reprisal killings, particularly in the north, because some officers of the north and the Sadana of Sokoto, a very important person to Northerners and to Nigerians, was killed. It happened that Akintola was killed. Okpara was premier of Eastern region, he was not killed. Osadebe was premier of Midwestern region, he was not killed. Okpara was not killed because the prime minister, the president of Cyprus, Archbishop Makarios, was on a state visit to Enugu at that particular time, and at the time the coup was taking place, he was having dinner with Dr. Okpara as the premier of the region. And so the soldiers thought they should not go and kill a foreign president or do something that would put his life in danger. And now in the Midwest, which was just formed, it was a newly formed state, there had been no resident military, no army there. So the nearest army was to be either posted to that place from Ibadan or from Enugu. But before they could post the army to go and do something there, already the coup had been foiled. See, these are circumstances which people don't. And then a great mistake was made. I call it a mistake. This is my personal opinion. Because in the West, Fajuyi, the military governor of the West, was consulting with the political leaders of the West. In the North, Katsina, the military governor of the North, was consulting with his people. As a matter of, he held regular meetings with the northern leaders. But in the East, Ojukwu did a calamitous mistake by sending all the leaders to detention or imprisonment. Dr. Okpara, the premier, was sent in prison to Warri, in detention. Dr. Mbanugo, the chairman of the Eastern Working Committee of the NCNC, was sent in detention to Uyo. Dr. Azikiwe, the former the president before the coup, was detained, restricted within 7 miles radius of his house. Akanu Ibiam was restricted within 7 miles radius of his house. Mbazulike Amaechi was restricted within 7 miles radius of his house. So there was no otherwise.
So what was the mistake? Possible. What was the mistake actually? Because you just said that there was a very big mistake.
The mistake was that we are the people who could have. We are the people who could have gotten in touch somehow. All right. To appeal to people, to try to see how the errors of the killings had been made and how that is to find a political solution to the crisis.
All right. We'll just have to go on a short break now, Chief Amaechi. When we come back,
if we had been out, if we had not been restricted laws, we would have been able
to find a,
because we have had more serious crises than this in the past. We have had
all right. Just hold on there, Chief Amaechi. We have to go on a short break. When we come back, we'll talk about the political solution that's necessary at this point in time, especially considering what's going on in the Southeast You're still watching the Arise interview, plenty more still ahead as we continue our chat with Mbazulike Amaechi, Nigeria's First Minister of Aviation. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Arise interview, where we speak to the newsmakers as well as ordinary people doing extraordinary things around the world and featuring the voices at the heart of the stories. I'm Somna Sambo. I've been speaking with Mbazulike Amaechi, elder statesman and Nigeria's first aviation and transport minister. Despite a career in politics spanning more than 60 years or so, Amaechi has managed to stay relevant. Just last year, he led some Igbo leaders to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari to discuss the fate of separatist leader Namdi Kanu. And I still have Chief Amaechi from his hometown in Nkwo. Stay with it. All right. And Chief, you actually urge Igbo youths to respect your age and stop wanton killings. And then after that, you led a delegation to meet with President Muhammadu Buhari, and you asked him to look for a political solution to the issue of Namdi Kanu. Do you think that political solution is on the way? And what do you make of President Buhari's recent interview when he said that we should allow the judiciary to conclude its procedures?
I went to President Buhari with two item agenda. I didn't go just for Namdi Kanu's case alone. I went there to try and see how I can help in finding a solution to the problem that has made the Igbos to live in fear or as an isolated part of Nigeria or as an unequal part of a federation. Particularly if you come to the east now, to Igbo land, to southeast now, you cannot move freely. You cannot move freely. You cannot even keep business appointments because everywhere on the road, every 1 kilometer or so, there's military checkpoint. And these soldiers block the way. Everybody in lorries or buses or small vehicles have to step down and walk across from both sides of the road, and some of them are searched. And when they are searched, some of them are even asked to pay money, and they pay money. So it used to take me about 7 minutes to drive from my house to Nnewi. But the other time it took me 1 hour and 20 minutes, you see, to travel from my house to Nnewi in a car. Even though I was not even one of those the checks, because when I came, I drove past the long queue and said, what is happening? So that is that. Then there is this fear. The children are losing a school day, an academic day, every week. Look, imagine the effect it will have on the future of the future generation of Igbo land. That they are met in other parts of the country.
And President Buhari has talked about some of the things that you asked him to do. He has said it's a difficult situation to find a political solution to the issue of Namdi Kanu. And he said recently in his interview that the judicial process should be allowed to go on. What do you make of that?
I didn't hear him say that. He didn't say that to me. He said to me that what I was asking was difficult, but he would look at it, and I believe he's looking at it because a lot of water is passing under the bridge since I met him. Afterwards, it's the the presidency that arranged or allowed me to go and see Namdi Kanu in detention, where nobody was allowed to see him, is to discuss and so forth. So I don't believe that. So there are so many ways that there are at least 3 ways of solving the problem. There is the judicial way. There is a combination of the political way.
Okay, as we try to round off this conversation, sorry to cut in there, I just needed to put this to you because we don't have enough time left. Do you believe in the possibility of the emergence of an Igbo presidency in 2023?
What's wrong with that? Of course, it's a possibility. You see, presidency is true that at the moment the Igbos are relegated by the administration, but it's for the Igbos to rediscover themselves. It's for the Igbos to fight and swim back to power. You see, political power, presidency is not awarded. It's not dashed to people. It's not given as a present. If you want to be a president, you have to reorganize, you have to get across, you have to mobilize, you have to strategize, you have to get people. It's people that will vote and make you president. Yes.
So have you seen
the government may not give.
Have you seen any of the aspirants that stands out among the Igbo leaders that have shown intention to contest?
I don't know about the Biafran issue, but for all I know, if they want to find a solution to that, then it's easy. The people say they want a plebiscite. Give them plebiscite. How are you even sure that in a plebiscite they know may not win? So, but the question is that Buhari cannot do that now. His small time left. And but the question is, I personally don't believe in this splitting of the country. But the united country must be on equal basis.
All right, we must thank you so much, Chief Amaechi Mbazulike, former Minister of Aviation and the very first one in the country, for joining us from your hometown in Nkwo in Nnewi local government area of Anambra State. Thank you so much for joining us.
We are Nkwo, not Nkwo. Nkwo is another town. Nkwo. My place is Nkwo. UKPO.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much for letting us know that. Well, that's how it's been for this edition of the Arise interview. Do join us again next week. From me and the entire team here in Abuja, goodbye and thank you for watching.